How big can I get my heart to be?
Thought Media Network proudly presents
How much love can I get flowing out of me?
The Real Talk Sisters. Deep, unfiltered, soulful conversations with Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, Reverend Kim Andrews, and Reverend Melinda Wood Allen.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Join us for Real Talk on Real Issues, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Central, 1 o'clock Mountain. And now, let's join the Real Talk Sisters.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Hey.
Hello there.
Hey, Kim. Hi, everybody. Our friend, Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, is not here with us today. She is, I started to say manning the voting. She's personing the voting stations today. So doing her civic duty, which I have a lot of admiration for. So we just speak of her in her absence and say a little prayer that she makes it through this very, very long and stressful day.
Yeah, she's taken a lot on. So yeah, our hearts and thoughts are with her.
Absolutely.
Today, we look forward to her being with us next week.
Absolutely. Yay.
So let's
yeah, you go.
do a check-in. I was going to ask you first. How are you doing?
I am hanging in there. It's interesting that you suggested that we talk about resistance to change, because there are a lot of changes happening in my life right now, and they're not necessarily bad, but it's just a lot of changes, and just sort of dealing with the logistical, physical, catching up with that, with the fallout of all that, which can be exhausting. So I've been doing some of that and doing some running away from that. That maybe running away is too strong a word, but I took some days off this week. It's like, I'm not going to unpack anything. I'm not going to write anything. I'm just going to be for a few days. And I got to watch how I react to being rather than doing, which is not a pretty sight always. I like to do. And it's really, it's very interesting to watch myself when I go, wait, no, you said you weren't going to do that. So sit here and don't do that. Whew, it's been interesting, but good. Everything is either good or for our good. That's what I have to say.
I kind of like that. Things are either good or for our good. Yeah.
So I'm believing that right now when things are a little bit tumultuous and a little bit difficult.
I actually believe that as well. So yeah, things are good or for our good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If we choose.
Yeah.
Should you choose to accept that?
Yes. Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
With the cassette disintegrating. Yes. Wow, that was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Sorry, you young people don't even know what a cassette is.
Yeah, there's that. I guess we could still find pictures.
Yeah.
How am I? I'm probably in about the same place. Some changes happening, and I am being still about it a lot, which also was against my grain. And now I'm finding it is more with my grain or in alignment with where I am now in life and my spirituality, and the fact that I'm just too darn tired to fight stuff now, Yeah. Or I'm unwilling to share my energy that way. I just, resistance is futile.
Wow.
Say the Borg. And so I am sitting and going, a lot. How can I respond to this? Mm-hmm. And, if I need a tantrum, I do a tantrum for a little bit. And then I sit down, pull on my big girl panties and, or my spiritual panties. Which may be the same thing.
Of our show, spiritual panties, pulling up the spiritual panties.
pulling up the spiritual panties, which probably equal my big girl panties now. So there's been a merging of the panties. Yes.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
There's
because
been a merging.
spirituality is about maturity. I don't think
Yes.
it's a bypass to try to be spiritually mature without reaching any emotional maturity. It just doesn't,
Mhm.
it doesn't really work. It doesn't
Yeah.
really, in my experience, it doesn't work. And in
Yeah.
my observation, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. So yeah.
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 So it's not a tumultuous time. It's, I'm saying okay a lot. All right. All righty then.
All
All
right.
righty then. I
That's the way.
imagine there's something in my spiritual bag to pull out for this, even though I don't know what it is at the moment. And I'm willing to explore. I'm willing to explore. So actually, exploration is a lot more fun.
It is. Meeting change with curiosity. Ooh. Yeah. Big one.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little reading from a book about change that I have been reading as part of my morning reading for the last couple weeks, and it's from Ram Dass's book, Still Here. You know, his first big book that brought him to public attention was called Be Here Now, and now he's got this book, Still Here: Embracing Aging, Changing, and Dying. And I'm going to just read a little paragraph from this. The ego is what experiences aging, changing, and death. It doesn't continue, but it is nearly impossible for the ego to imagine its own demise. When the ego thinks it's dying, it mistakes itself for the whole body, soul, and awareness. And often people who are beginning to go through the long process of ripening into God, I love that phrase, ripening into God, run around to different doctors, maybe even shrinks, because they develop an even more intense dread of death. But awareness, God, whatever you want to call it, is beyond time and concept. This is the ground of being. Souls explode out of awareness like little big bangs. The soul's relationship to awareness is like child to mother. The clear light of awareness is what the soul yearns to return to. Ripening into God is the soul's journey.
Ooh, ripening into God.
Ripening
Gosh, I
into
like that.
God. Isn't that a beautiful way to look at aging? Ripening into God, because that's union is what we want. We know we are already one, but so much of us is not aware of that. We're not at one with our own awareness, because we're carrying around these bodies and these egos and the culture and all of the stuff we carry along with us that makes it hard for us to even, like he says, the ego can't imagine being gone. It just can't imagine it. Because it's it thinks it's the whole thing, but it's not the show. Awareness is the show. Consciousness is the show.
Yeah.
And so learning to identify with our consciousness, which does not change, rather than with our bodies and our egos, which are constantly changing, is where it's at. She said wisely, but can I do it well? Well, some days.
But then there's that.
Then there's that.
Yeah. So in our pre-show discussion, we talked about two kinds of change: a change we ask for, which sometimes we still resist. I'm a master at that. And then the change that just happens, that comes from some shift in our relationships that we didn't see coming, didn't know about, for
or
whatever
like
reason.
this.
Yes, had blinders on.
I never saw that coming.
Ignoring of the red flags, waving all over the place. The big billboards we pass along the way. And we say, oh, not talking to me, not talking to me. I'm invisible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Until we actually hit the brick wall. Oh yeah, who knew there was a wall there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the wall coming, and yet I denied the existence of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, and then there's life, deaths that happen. A friend of mine, terminated, downsized from a career of, 20 some years, and suddenly left with nothing to do. I didn't know who they were, didn't know how to define themselves, didn't know their use.
Yeah.
Is there a use for me? If I'm not my title, what am I? That was very earth-shattering for them. So yeah, change happens, and change is the only constant, right? We keep hearing that.
Yeah.
And now we're experiencing tons of it.
Yeah. The Buddha said, life is dukkha, which I like to sometimes think of as life as dookie. But I like better what Scott Peck says about that, which is that in life there is suffering, not life is suffering, but in life there is suffering. It's just the way it is. And then the Buddha goes on to say, and all suffering is caused by our holding on to that which changes. That pain may come, change definitely will come, but the suffering is the holding on to the thing that's changing, trying to keep things the way they are. And, they're leaving our fingernail prints deeply embedded and, scratching along the surface as something is, we think, taken from us. And that's
the first time I heard that, I thought that's quite simplistic, and I had some eye rolling about it, about attachment. I was, really? And then the more I, sat with it, I thought, oh yeah, okay. I realized the times when I was really attached to something, an outcome, or the way things were presently, or the way I thought they were presently. And the shift in them was so uncomfortable that it took me a while to realize that I was the one, that I had the attachment, and that I could let it go and be okay, and probably be better. Yeah.
And that only you could do that. Nothing else, and no one outside of you could put you in that space of being okay, except you. Yeah. That attachment, it's huge. And learning to detach, and that, like your friend you were talking about, that is about attachment to a role. Our ego likes to wear hats and think that's who we are. I had a huge change in my life when I had been a music director at the same church for 24 years. And at the time I was, I think, 45 years old. So more than half my life I had spent fulfilling a certain role at a certain place with certain people who it was a wonderful role. It was a wonderful place until it wasn't. There were wonderful people there who, I treasure to this day. But it was so messy when I had to leave, and there were all kinds of reasons why that had to happen. And I did my best to detach with grace, and to leave with what 12-step calls restraint of pen and tongue, without having to go around and burn bridges and tell everybody this is why I'm leaving and this is what you need to know and blah, blah, blah. And thank God that I did, because within really a couple of years, it became so apparent to me that all of the reasons why I left had nothing to do with why I left, other than that it was time. It was time. Why ever I was there was complete. And it was time to move on. And that when we are complete and yet we still try to hang on, that's when we cause ourselves all kinds of pain. So I did let go, but it was hard. I grieved for a long time. And part of what I was grieving was, just the place that I was at 3, 4, 5 times a week for 24 years in a row, just not getting dressed and getting my car and driving to that place and being with those people and fulfilling that role was a lot of it. And what I recognize is that eventually I took on other roles, different roles. And now I know a little bit more about not getting too attached to those roles. Because I can do the same thing over again,
Yeah, sure.
Find a new role. And that tends to be what we do. So, let's find a different thing to be. Okay, now I'm this. And at no time is the now, the this we are, unless we're identifying with spirit.
So I was in a similar situation, but a different player. So at the church I was going to, probably for about 9 or 10 years, and our music director left. And it was a huge shift in the community, huge shift. A lot of parishioners, congregants left. 90% of the choir left. 99% of the choir left. And so I was one of the few that stayed and really had to grapple with why I stayed and all the change that had to happen within the community for us to keep going. And then I had to decide, how do I keep going and not be angry, bitter, childish, out of alignment with who I say I am in this situation. But I knew that I was supposed to stay. I knew that. I wasn't always clear in the beginning about the why, but I knew that I didn't have clear guidance from spirit to exit that situation. So I stayed. And then, the changing in the guard happened, and I needed to face that. And how do I show up as the Kim that I am, can be proud of every day in that situation? So I, in an instant, had to let go of whatever had been before, as painful as it was, and be very present and very open. And I also wanted to be a beacon for others, because there was still a lot of communal pain in the place.
Yeah.
There was a lot of communal pain.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And there are still some vestiges of that.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. And it's probably been 7, 8 years. So, and that kind of change when, because I did feel that certainly my role changed. And I knew that I wanted to step up as someone who could be a beacon for others. I knew that. And so the question was, how does that happen? And what does that look like? So all of this I'm trying to process as I'm trying to process my own grief.
Yes.
And be able to grieve what wasn't there. And even if things shifted again, would never be like it was before.
Yeah.
And in my conversations with others who were going through this, whether they left or not, there was a lot of holding on and saying, I just want what we had. And, that's, there's the rub, right? No matter how much we want it to be like it was, it'll never be like it was. We may be able to regain something, but it'll never, ever be like it was. Because we've all now had this experience together. So that was a real lesson for me. And probably, when it's different when you're going through something by yourself and it's a personal change. But when it's a change that's happening within a community and everybody is having to shift, then there's a lot of energies floating around and bumping into each other and things blowing up and egos all over the place and needs and things like that. And so it was an interesting time, and it taught me a lot. Yes.
It is time for us to take a short break, and then we'll come back and maybe talk a little bit more about those egos floating around and the grief process and whatever else comes up.
Yes.
We're back.
We're
We're
back.
back. So you mentioned that as things change, even when we are showing up as our best selves to the best of our ability, really tuning in, and by the way, kudos, because you had practice at being quiet and listening to the guidance of spirit were you able to do that. You couldn't have just like, in this moment, I need guidance from spirit and I need it now, if you hadn't had a practice that had built up over time. And so you were able to hear that guidance and to follow it and to show up graciously and with intent. And that didn't mean you weren't hurting just as badly as the people who left, or even more so.
Yeah. I remember leaving in the morning to go to church and crying on the way.
Yeah.
Crying on the way and sitting in the car for a few minutes to gather myself to say, okay, now how do I walk through those doors? Mm-hmm. And I really had to leave my ego somewhere because, part of me, there's an ego part of me that likes to hit back when I feel like I'm hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had to work with her, my evil twin, I call her.
Yeah.
She was tapping me saying, maybe we should say such and such. Maybe we should, just let them know what we think.
Yes.
And maybe just one good uppercut of a statement just to leave my mark. And there were days I was talking to myself saying, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's not how we want to show up. That's not how we want to show up.
That's what I meant by restraint of pen and tongue. Because I had that same, this part of me that's like, well, people need to know. They need to know the facts. Yeah. They don't know the facts. They're being lied to. They need to know. They need to know. And then I would say, but do they really need to know?
Yeah.
And more importantly, is it your place to tell them? Do you need to be the one to tell them? Because they need to know is a completely different thing from I need to enlighten them. Yes. That's an ego thing. Mm-hmm. It really is an ego thing. And what I finally came to was there is nothing that I know that is unknowable by anybody who chooses to investigate or ask questions or pay attention or anything. I don't have special knowledge here. And so the question became, who am I to try to damage someone else's relationship with this situation by imposing what I know, what my view, what my feelings about it are. It's not mine to do. And it just became very clear to me. It's not mine to do. If it needs to be done, fine, God pick somebody, but I got no guidance that it was mine to do. I got guidance that I had all I had to say grace over, just keeping me okay.
Amen to that. And I also knew that part of my wanting to enlighten them was about retribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I did want to hit back, that I, wanted to say it in such a way that they were going to feel it. Mm-hmm. Not that I could be I wasn't thinking about it as being a beacon for them. I really wanted to hit back.
Yeah.
And so I knew that, yeah, that doesn't, I was mature enough emotionally and spiritually at that point to know, yeah, that didn't need to happen. I needed to slow that roll of mine and just let it be. And like you said, if there's somebody else who's to deliver a message, it's certainly not me right now.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to help heal anything,
Right.
what I have to say.
And that's the question, is like, what is my intention here? What do I hope to accomplish? If I'm hoping to accomplish somebody knowing something, why does it have to come from me?
Yeah.
Am I really hoping to accomplish that I get to be right and show everybody who's wrong?
Mhm.
Or to, to hurt back what's been hurt in me.
Yeah.
And once we see it clearly that way, then if we have any spiritual maturity at all, it's very clear. It's like, no, if why I'm doing this is to retaliate, then I don't have to ask any more questions. No, the answer is no. No.
Unequivocally.
Unequivocally. And the only way that I could do that is if I lie to myself about why it is. No, I really feel like these people need to be enlightened, and I'm going to, be the whistleblower because that's my place or whatever. And it's an interesting thing. And I also remember at the time, because there was a lot of misinformation, and sometimes I would think, well, at least I need to correct the misinformation about, if it were about me or about something to do with me. And then I really got clear, my life is my message. And I will continue to be who I am in the best ways possible. Be true to myself, be true to my spirituality, my belief system, my values, be true to all of that. And then it won't matter what anybody else says. They can't harm me. And the people who matter will see the evidence of, oh yeah, but she's who she always has been, and she hasn't changed, and that hasn't changed. So why should I believe something that says different? And you have to get okay with people believing what they want to believe too about the situation.
Yeah. And I think so that ego, what do we call it? Once we've dealt with the ego and we realize where it's coming from and that we're choosing something else, I think that was, for me, was always probably a first step in transcending my resistance to change. Once I calmed my ego down and I allowed myself to think clearly, to feel fully, because a lot of times, with change, our emotions are all over the place. Mine certainly are. And so then I can allow transcendence probably at that point, because I'm opening a door and saying I'm leaving space for something else to come in here, even if it's my own understanding. And it's my own. And I think once I get to understanding, then maybe I'm heading towards acceptance, or whatever state I'm going to be in as this change rolls out into my life. And that could happen within minutes, depending on the change, days, weeks, months, years.
Absolutely.
Change isn't always instantaneous, is it?
Oh no. And that, that's what a beautiful segue into what I was just thinking about, which is that a lot of changes do sneak up on us. And this is an experience I've had of late, is that, and it's a lot dealing with, also my aging. We're both aging, but my husband's quite a bit older than I am. And so I'm seeing the effects of his aging in a way that hasn't been in our faces in the past. And it's making me look back, or I'm choosing to look back in some ways. And one of the things that I'm allowing myself space to grieve is that, there are a lot of things that I'm realizing, that was the last time we did that. And we didn't know at the time that it was the last time. And so now it's like, up until this moment when I realized this, that possibility still exists in my life. And when I look at it and go, oh no, that was it. That was it. And I didn't even make a big deal of it at the time. I didn't say, yay. I didn't throw a party or say goodbye or whatever. It was just, that was it. And looking back, it's like, oh, that door is closed. It didn't slam. I didn't burn a bridge, but it's pretty well closed. And so how do I feel about that? And I get to feel about that. I get to feel about that. And I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Yes. Yeah, and we do. And so I think once I learned that particular thing, that I get to feel something about it. And yes, I'm going to sit here and feel it now. That got me closer also to transcendence. I think we have to move those emotions.
Absolutely.
So that we can, because moving through my emotion always gave me clarity. Because then, everything I'm feeling is not all of clogging my head and my heart and my chest, because you can feel the tightness here. I always do.
Yes.
Right. I just feel contracted and heavy and like I'm dragging something. And then once I allow myself to be in the emotion and it can move, then I can kind of take a deep breath and then, the brain starts to work a little bit. And then maybe there is something new that I can step into now. Maybe a door shut. But maybe there are other things now that are opening up. And what might those things be? And how can I give myself to them?
Yeah.
And how can I, what do I feel about that? What do I feel about something new?
And also how can I allow that to inform me to be more present and more grateful in my life today? Because I may be doing something right this minute for the very last time. And is this how I want to leave it? Is this how I want to leave? It is a more intentional and considered way of living that comes when you are able to transcend that. Change happens, but how can I transcend my attachment to those things, to things being a certain way? My desire for control.
Ugh.
I was thinking one of the things that changes in my life, just a little more lighthearted, that I was kind of really looking forward to in a lot of ways was when my daughter graduated from high school and was ready to move out on her own. It was like we had made the decision just a few years before not to have more children because we could see light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, oh, we might be able to be free soon. Yeah. And so that was a grief. That was a closing of a door that was very intentional and conscious. And then it was like, wow, in a couple of years, she's going to be out, and about and doing her own thing. And wow, that opens up all kinds of doors for what the two of us can do. And, we can walk around naked in the living room if we want to, that sort of thing. And it really wasn't something that I was dreading. She was equipped. She was independent. She knew what she wanted to do. And boy, does she still. And yet, I'm thinking I'm handling this so well. What's this empty nest syndrome everybody's talking about? I'm handling this so well. And then we are in the Albertsons, my husband and I, going shopping, and I reach for a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese, and I start bawling. It's like, I don't need to buy this anymore because she doesn't live in our house anymore, and she's the only one who needs it, and just lost it in the middle of the Albertsons. And, now I tell that story as a humorous story, but at the time it was just like, oh, wow, this really happened. She's really doesn't live with us anymore. I mean, she's still in our lives, but she doesn't live here anymore. We don't have to buy the kind of food she wants. It was that very specific detail of the loss, and those are the kinds of things that can blindside us when we are when we're moving through grief, when we're moving through change. is that we can look at the big picture and go, oh yes, I'm very expansive. I can hold all of this, and not even realize that our emotional connection to it until some specificity, hits us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we make space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make
We get a
space for
trigger.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend whose daughter is getting ready to go to college. It's her senior year. So she is in her last couple of months of senior. And she's been grieving. She's actually had this anticipatory grief for a while. And it's really not anticipatory because, like you were saying, she's had a lot of last things since last summer. So when she began her senior year, then it was like, oh, the last time she'll be going to school and I'll be taking her last year in high school. And then the last time she does this. And then here comes senior pictures and prom and applying for schools. And where's her daughter going to go? Is she going to be local? Even if she's local, she's not going to be living at home. And if she's away, that's something different. And of course she wants her daughter to spread her wings. Her daughter's very much like yours, knows what she wants. She's going for it. She is not looking back and is very excited about this change. And so here my friend is thinking, oh, okay, all right, this is unsettling. And I'm actually grieving. And so she's had quite a bit of tears, and she just lost her second parent, just died last year, her father. And so she's almost alone in her navigating through this transition. And so everything that is happening, she's wondering, oh gosh, my dad would have enjoyed this, because he lived right down the street and was very close with them. And her mother's been gone now for a number of years. But, now so the grief is stacking on top of each other, the loss of her father, and now her daughter transitioning out into living her own life. And it's been very, very challenging for her, even as she says yes to this, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's a natural part of life. She's excited for her daughter, and her heart is hurting. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that. And I have this feeling that when we grieve something, it triggers all the other grief within us. Even when I think I have mourned my parents very thoroughly, and yet it still can just hit me from the side, sometimes. And particularly, I think in big life transition type things, when I don't know if this is a thing for you, but when I realized, oh, I'm standing at the head of the line right now.
Oh yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
The elders, the people that I call and go, hey, my hair's on fire. I need you to help me, mommy, daddy, grandma, aunt, whatever.
There's nobody now.
I'm the one people are calling. I'm like, what? you calling me? What?
Yes, I'm right there. I'm at the exact same place. Yeah. But we're in moments, we are sitting here saying, who am I going to call?
Yeah.
Who do I get to call? Thank God for you and Pjae.
Right.
Because you're the ones I call. And you're the ones who mother me in times when I need somebody. And, sometimes you're my sisters. Sometimes we are, girlfriends. Sometimes we are mothering each other, nurturing each other. And so, yeah, it's hard when you're, at the front of the line and people are calling us. And as ministers, there's a lot more of that because, we're mothering a congregation.
Yes.
So it's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot.
Where do we run? Yeah. Who do we call? Who are you going to call?
Well, and that brings up, there's been some loss in my church community lately. Some very cherished members. One that I was particularly, the whole church was close to, because he just had that kind of personality, but I was particularly close to him. I mean, really, I can't tell you how many times just in the last couple of months, I'll watch a movie and I'll think, oh, I need to call Bill and say, have you seen this yet? So we can dish about it or whatever. And he's not there anymore. And so I'm navigating my own personal grief around this. And I'm also navigating his wife, who I'm also very close to, who has just lost her partner of 35 years.
Yeah.
And as I'm navigating, my husband is ill. And is that going to be me someday sooner than I would like? And also navigating, I have this whole congregation who felt close to him. So there's all that. There's layers and layers. And one thing that I know is that it does not help me to pretend I'm more okay than I am.
Right.
And the truth is, I really am okay. There are, and you talked about this earlier, there are tools that I have that can ensure my okayness from day to day. Doesn't mean I'm going to like it. Doesn't mean I'm going to like how I feel. Doesn't mean I won't get tired. It doesn't mean I won't need to throw tantrum every now and then. But there are tools that I've spent, decades intentionally drawing to myself and practicing with and getting ready for the day when I need to use them. And they're there for me to fall back on. So it is about time for us to take another break, and maybe we can talk about what some of those tools are in our toolboxes as we come back.
Let's
Sound
do
good?
that.
All
Yes.
right. Thanks. See you in a minute. We're back. So,
Tools.
What's your favorite tool?
Probably going into silence, meditation. And, I find that if I am highly emotional, I need something to help me fall into meditation. So I may need music. And for me, it's generally music. So that I can, when I'm in meditation, so the music helps me emote. If I got tears or whatever it is, I can do that. If I need to flip the switch from spiraling down into negativity and doubt, that the music helps me shift so that once I get into meditation, it is peaceful and I am in the awareness of God consciousness, and that I am really resting and refreshing myself in that silence rather than continuing the tantrum in quiet.
Yes.
For me, it's different.
Yeah.
I could be in the quiet resisting, but sometimes I need something to help me segue into silence and peace, so that meditation is really, so maybe that's a combination of tools. I don't know. Maybe that's what that is. Yeah. How about you?
The music is always, for me, it's my happy place. It's my grieving place. It's my spiritual place. It's my everything place. And like you, sometimes when the emotions are so big, I don't want to be in the silence with that.
I know.
With that mess.
No.
It's like an invitation to a panic attack. I'm going to sit here while all this is swirling and let it swirl in the quiet. And
I never swirl up. I always swirl down.
Yes, right. Oh yeah. It's always spirals going this way. Yes, exactly.
Down the toilet. That's right.
Down the drain.
Yeah.
And so chanting is good for me. It helps me a lot. And sometimes I have particular ones that I like to do that draw me in because of the the words. And then there are times when I need to just disconnect even from words. And so I go with the Sanskrit or even a Latin chant where I'm not so connected to the meaning of every word, but I can allow the music and the prosody of the words and the music to do its work in me.
Yeah, I understand that, because sometimes I need to vocalize like you. I may need to sing something and cry through it. Or I just need to listen. I may find some of my favorite instrumental classical music to listen to. So it depends on what the emotion is or what the circumstance is. Do I need to sing through this, chant through this, or do I just need to sit and let the music move me through whatever it is? Yes.
And I also find that it is helpful, because we're talking about practice here, right? When you practice something, you get good at it. Generally, you can do it more efficiently and more quickly than if you don't practice. So, right? And so there are certain things that are, I think of them as shortcuts. Like any music will do it, but there are certain, it's like, okay, I need this right now, because I know that's the arrow to this place. No time to meander around and eventually get there. I need the arrow, and I know what that arrow is. And I think music does that for me, but also there are rituals that help as well. You know, if you always light a candle with a certain scent when you meditate, then when you light that candle and smell that scent, it can take you into a meditative, space. That's the point of incense, is that it becomes associated with what you're doing while you're smelling the incense. And then it's you're meditating, you want incense, or you smell incense and suddenly you want to meditate, or whatever the rituals may be. It helps me to have, not that I can't meditate anywhere, but I have a particular chair that I come and sit in, and I have, in a particular room, and I have, things around me. I have the books that I like to refer to, because sometimes that's my way in, is to pick up something that's inspiring, that's going to take me, to a deeper place, get me out of my own thoughts and into someone else's thoughts for a moment, especially if their thoughts are particularly spiritualized ones. It can get me out of, and so all of those are tools and the ways into a single tool, which is meditation and prayer.
Yeah. Sometimes I need to be reminded of my truth. And so that might be why I read a particular thing. And I have a habit with my favorite books that I will write, like on the first blank page when you first open the book, page such and such, self-mastery, or page this, what about loving myself, or something. And then that way I can go back, look at that list and say, okay, where's that? I know I got that passage and I know it's in this book. Where is it? And usually there's a Post-it note or something in there, because I go back to that fairly regularly. And that'll help remind me of my truth, because I'm in my emotion, I have forgotten.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have books like that are just, and I'm terrible with my books, but they're mine and I get to love them however I want. They're dog-eared and they've got Post-it notes in them, and they've got little sticky things, and I've written in the margins. I have things underlined. I have little parentheses around whole paragraphs and stuff, which is why, when we were looking for a quote on change, I sort of opened my Ram Dass book, which is dog-eared in like 17 places. And I went, okay, that's the one. And the paragraph was already, marked with a little purple pen. So that's helpful to me. I need to, it's kind of like comfort food for the soul, to go back to something that I know was effective and brought me to a certain place in the past. And it's like, okay, I need a little fried chicken and and biscuits for the soul right now, or some chicken soup for the soul. That sometimes we just need that macaroni and cheese, that comfort food.
Absolutely.
to get us to that place, because it is difficult to be spiritual when your emotions are in a torrent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes I also need to do something physical or
Mm.
go outside. So if I feel like, because some of my emotion just pours forth easily, but sometimes I'm resisting my emotion. And it might be that I've got a lot to contend with that day. And I know letting my emotion flow, or I'm thinking letting my emotion flow is not going to be good for that.
Yeah.
So I may tamp it down somewhere, but I feel it pushing. You know how you feel it right underneath your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there, and you know it is, and all you need is somebody to say, like you or Pjae could say, "Gee, how are you?" And oh my God.
Yes. And thank God for people like that in our lives, because
Thank God.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where others don't, it doesn't work like that. But
Yeah.
with certain people in my life, they can ask that question, and that just pushes everything over the dam. But I can sometimes hold it down. So there are times I need to help my emotion move. And usually being physical, I can go for a walk, and bless my neighbors, they have watched me walk and cry
Oh.
through certain times of my life, like after my father died, after my mother died, after my sister died. I just walked miles and wept.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only way to uh, let my emotion flow and get unstuck and be able to take a deep breath again.
Yeah. Um, Sometimes just putting my bare feet on grass,
Yeah.
sometimes just holding a tree or sitting near one. I like to touch. I like to touch trees.
Mhm.
It does something for me. They speak to me in a very, very deep way. Sometimes, just we all have different ways in.
Mhm. Mhm.
Trees are a big one for me. There have been times in my life when a cat in my lap was the
Oh,
most comforting thing that, I couldn't have ordered any better. And I knew it was like, God, thank you for sending me this cat who is
mhm.
ornery as all get out most of the time, but who right now is right where I need, it to be.
They
Soothing.
start to purr, they're
Yeah.
kneading their paws, and
Mhm.
you just think,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are times when I even, my husband is a tool of mine in the best possible way, where I just say that I don't want to be in charge of anything. I need to lean on you, and absolutely we'll go sit next to him and literally lean on him and just lay against him for a while. And I'll say, I don't care what we eat for dinner. I don't care what happens. If we're going to watch a movie, I don't care what it is. You just make every decision. I just need to withdraw. I need to hunker down. I need to not be in charge for however long. And he'll say, okay, I got this. I got this. And so sometimes I just need to lean and just, I don't have to talk about it. We don't have to have a discussion. He doesn't need to fix anything. I just need to sit and be, and still be kind of engaged in my world, but be attached again, or next to someone who's got my back. And I know they'll hold the space for me until I'm ready to re-engage with life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have that's a prayer that I have for all people, that everyone has a space holder. It doesn't have to be a partner, it doesn't have to be a spouse, but somebody in their life who they can go, okay, this person's got my back. And and I want to be that. I want to be that in the world for people as well. But
Yes.
as we've talked about many, many times, I cannot be that for anybody else unless I am using my tools to
Mhm.
get myself into the space where I can receive spiritual guidance. Um, And I think that's kind of where a lot of what our discussion today has centered around. Somebody wrote in the chat, very deep, very scary. Yeah. That's, I think what we've unintentionally sort of focused in on is how, in order to listen to and be in our spiritual selves, we have to deal with our human emotions. And our human emotions are always going to not necessarily want change. I remember telling people when I was young that I really didn't even want to win the lottery. Just the thought of winning the lottery made me think, well, my life would have to change in so many ways that no, I'm really fine. Paycheck to paychecks works for me. And my husband would go, you're so crazy, and these are just like, obviously just those what if sort of whimsical kind of talks. But truly, when someone say, well, what would you do if we win the lottery? I'd start having a panic attack. Oh my gosh, everything would change and people would be, and I would need to, because change felt that scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a child, trying to control my environment was the way that I felt safe in a home that wasn't safe emotionally or sometimes physically. And so I have to recognize that, and I have to not use that tool, which doesn't work. Maybe it worked when I was a child, to get me through whatever that was. But I know that tool of clinging, that tool of trying to make everything around me perfect, that tool of trying to control my environment does not work. So I have to be conscious of that, because sometimes we default to the tools that we know, to the tools that we grew up with, which is why it's so important to be intentional with practice, so that when we really need it, we've practiced it enough to know it's there.
And we can call it up easily. Yes.
Call it up easily.
Call it up easily. What was it that you said? Because that would be another tool for me. And maybe as we wind down now, we only have about 3 minutes. You said it's either good, it's all good, or it's good for me. Is that what you said?
It's either good or it's for my good.
And that, I do believe that.
Yeah.
And sometimes just saying that out loud to myself helps me move forward and transcend change. That yes, I can lean into this. And not only will I be okay, I'll probably be very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because as soon as you decide it's good, then it is.
Yes.
That's the deal. As soon as you take ownership of, okay, this is for my good. How am I stretching? What's my stretch here? What am I learning? How am I going to benefit from this? How can other people benefit from my going through this experience? Even,
Yeah.
all of that. It's either good or it's for my good. And Pema Chodron says that, and this is just a Buddhist concept, but she says it really beautifully, that your life is your best teacher. You don't need a guru. You don't need anybody to give you a test. You just have to pay attention. What's going on right now? What's present right now? Because that's my teacher. That's what I'm supposed to be learning from, or it wouldn't be happening.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Thanks. It's been a rich one, and I think actually we probably have enough material that we can continue the conversation about change next week, because we didn't really talk too much about the changes that we want, the changes that we invite, the changes that we court.
Let's do that next week, and I'm really curious to see what Pjae has to say about all this.
Yeah,
we need her in this too.
Yeah, I can't wait till she's back with us. It's been a really lovely time. So thank you all for joining. Anybody else got a comment before we leave? We have about 1 more minute. All right, we'll leave you with this. It's good or it's for your good.
Amen to that.
Amen. Believe it with all my heart.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
All right.
I
See you next
appreciate you.
week.
Bye-bye.